It's Dave here. Sorry we're a little late today. I had a lot of stuff to do and I just got it together. But to bring it all together even more, I have Darren Campbell on the viewer's left next to me. And we're going to get two old bloggers started. Today, we're talking about the staff, the coaching staff that the unofficial Kevin O'Connell is putting together with Kwesi Adofo-mensah, and it looks to be a good one. Then we're going to ask the question, is O'Connell the next Brad Childress? Do we have a chili on our way? Who knows? And then we get into my favorite subject of all, the big round bellies on the offensive line, right after the roll-in. Everybody, it's Dave here again, and first off, I want to thank you all for joining us today. We love it. We're sorry. I apologize that we're an hour late. That was all on me. Getting ready for the show. On my viewer's left over there is Darren Campbell of Two Old Bloggers, the second part of the bloggers from Freedom Loving Canada. How are you doing today, Darren?
Not bad, Dave. Feeling a little hungover. Had a few too many beers after the basketball game last night, so slow today, slow moving.
Well, I'll make up for it because I'm wound up. 3 hours of AC.
You are.
AC/DC gets me pumped up to talk Vikings football. And since we're
question, Dave.
What?
Yeah, are you Bon Scott AC/DC man or Brian Johnson AC/DC man, or both?
Both. I think the band is outstanding. What's the meme going around that they have, 13 albums that all sound alike? And they go, no, we're wrong. We have 14 albums that all sound alike. I love them all. It's great. It pumps me up. I think it's, roll outside the wire, ready to rock and roll. Let's go type of music for me.
Let's go with this. Let's go with this.
Absolutely.
Show.
All right. We have three primary topics, and I have a fourth secret topic at the end. Um, we will start off with you wanted to talk about, as we know, here we go. Um, Bon Scott in there. Thunderstruck, Dan. Absolutely thunderstruck. Doesn't matter. um, Bon for Drew. That's cool. Um, you sent me a line of themes and you wanted to talk about how the coaching staff seems to be coming together this week. We have gotten reports all over the interwebs from various reporters that this guy's been selected as this coach and this guy's been selected as that coach and this guy's been selected as this coach and so on and so forth. So we were going to talk about it. This is amazing since the official head coach hasn't been announced yet. None of these are official, but it seems like Kevin O'Connell is not only doing his diligence to win the ball game tomorrow in the Super Bowl, so we can have a Super Bowl winning head coach, but he's also communicating with Kwesi to assemble a staff. So let's get into.
Yeah, wondering if Sean McVay what he's feeling about. This is the biggest game of my life, and my offensive coordinator is just all he cares about is picking his staff for the Vikings head coaching gig. But anyway, these are the realities of the NFL sometimes.
Yes, they are. And Skull, everybody that's watching, we appreciate you here. We love it. Absolutely love it.
Yes, thanks for showing up.
All right, you wanted to start first off. Kevin O'Connell, we're hearing words that he's starting to assemble his staff. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the names have been coming in pretty regularly the past few days this week. Yeah, some of the Ed Donatel, the defensive coordinator, that's kind of the big one. Chris Cooper, offensive line coach, Curtis Modkins, running back coach, Chris Rumpf, defensive line, and Deshae Townsend showed up yesterday as allegedly our defensive backs coach. So that the coaching staff is starting to take shape. We're starting to get a feel and an idea of who the guys are that are going to be helping O'Connell if he is our head coach, and it's pretty much assured that he is. The big thing again is everybody was always concerned about who's going to be the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator. Right. And we know with the OC, I heard that Wade Phillips' son was potentially in there, but I haven't seen any tweets sent out that he is the guy. But
Doogie Wolfson said to watch out that. He knows for a fact that their agent has been in conversation with the Minnesota Vikings. So that most likely will happen, that we'll get him as the OC. But that has not leaked out yet.
No, it has not. But the thing that we're noticing with the five names that I have mentioned is that three of them were with the Denver staff, of course, under Vic Fangio, and the other two, Rumpf and Deshae Townsend, were with the Bears, either this year or most recently. Rumpf was with college at the college level. Last year, but so there's a Fangio Donatel link there as well, and I think that Donatel's an interesting cat. 65 years old, been coaching for over 31 of those in the NFL, and either been defensive backs coach or a defensive coordinator during that time. Had some stints as a Packers defensive coordinator from 2000 to 2003 under Mike Sherman. Those defenses were.
Are we going to hold that against him?
Yeah, well, of course. No, hey, if we let Brett Favre quarterback for us, and there's, what are you going to do? What are you going to do, right?
Right.
that's almost ancient history. That was like Randy Moss was playing for us back then. But Donatelli's had some high points. He was part of 2 Super Bowl winning teams with Denver in his first stint there as defensive backs coach. Had some low points in his career. He got canned along with the whole University of Washington staff, which went winless that in 2008, I believe. So, but he's a lifer. Obviously, Kevin O'Connell, as Mike Zimmer did when he became head coach, the side of the ball, the offensive side of the ball that he wasn't that he wasn't very familiar with. Yeah, that interested in. He chose as his first OC, of course, Norv Turner, very long tenured, experienced coordinator to handle that. And in Connell's case, he's taking a very long time, experienced coach to handle the defensive side of the ball, which he's not the expert in. Is it a good hire or not? Dave, I think you were maybe not as enthused. I got the sense initially when his name came up. But Denver's defense was pretty good the last 2 years. The question will be, was that because of Donatel, or was that because of Fangio, or is it both?
Well, the more I'm reading, all right, it very much looks like, and especially with all the candidates that were considered for defensive coordinator, we're moving to a 3-4 base. So very much Donatel takes his key from Fangio. Fangio runs it. Now, it also goes back to Staley, where they run a matched front, what is known as a matched front. And people think 3-4, 4-3, and think base, but honestly, we're not in base most of the time. We're in base maybe a quarter of the time. So
if that.
And so, but what a match base was, and I didn't get to grab the graphics I wanted, is that if there's 5 guys on the line, there's going to be 5 defenders on the line as well. And it's all, there was a very, very, very good podcast this week. It was Collar's podcast, and he had Jeremiah Searles on. And he was explaining the difference between a 3-5 and a 5-3 and a 4-3. And it was basically all where you had, there's slight alignment differences, but it's how you have the strong side lined up. And it's the strong side being the side with the tight end. It's whether you put your 3-tech on that side or you flip-flop and put the 3-tech on the other. And the 3-tech may not be a 3-tech in a 3-5. It may be more of a 5-tech, where Dalvin Tomlinson comes into play, because he can play that position. There is, it's going to be interesting. And most people think of, when they think 3-4 defense, defensive ends are generally in a 2-point stance instead of a 3-point stance. That's one of the differences. And they may have some pass coverage responsibilities. It's usually flat if they do. But we're going to see the different. It's not going to be a whole lot different in what we're used to, because a lot of the same concepts Zimmer actually ran. We'll see how the back end comes together, and that will be key. But we need a good linebacker in the middle. At least one. If you have one linebacker, you can run a dime, right? And we have one right now on the squad in Eric Kendricks. There's how they fill in others, whether it be Troy Dye or Chaz Surratt or whoever, we don't know yet. And we'll get into that when we talk linebackers further down the road. But it's going to be, may look slightly different, but it's going to function the same, is what I'm saying, as we're basically used to. And the whole idea is to literally match the offensive line so that you have all the holes plugged except for the backside, which we don't really care about the backside. But his backside is covered if needed be. Um, and it causes problems for the offense on how they do their reads and where they want to attack. And that's the goal. And hopefully Donatel brings that top 15, top 10 mentality, preferably, and we shut down people. At least that's my opinion.
Yeah, and Dave, those are all very good points. I think that really Donatel's job number one, taking over defense, I think, is to turn it into a defense that's like in at least worst case scenario, get it in the middle of the pack.
Right.
Compared to where it was last year. And now if we get a top 10 defense, that's all a gravy to me. But really, they got to go from being one of the worst units in the league to somewhere in the middle of the pack, I think. And then, what the offense, the talent is there, and should be able to perform much better with a much different offensive philosophy and better coaching. The Vikings haven't run a 3-4 since 1985. That's going to be a different look for us.
As fans, yes.
As fans, there was a tweet that came out from Chris Thomas, and he was talking to Mark Schlereth, who knows Donatel quite well, and Schlereth said that actually Donatel's 3-4 is really a 4-2 nickel disguised as a 3-4, and it was mentioned earlier that the Viking, we were talking about the Vikings were in a base 4-3 very little in most games. If an offense is running 3 or 4 wide receivers, they're going to a 4-2 nickel, basically. So like you said, this defense could really be operating a lot like the other one did. What I've always liked about the 3-4, even though the Vikings haven't run it for almost 40 years, is I like the
like 1 year.
Yeah. Yeah. That was when they had that was like Dolman's first with the team, and he played linebacker, and he kind of struggled, and then they moved him to defensive end, and we all know how that turned out when they went back to the 4-3. But I've always liked the 3-4 because I find it creates I think you were getting at it. That's what you're talking about blocking schemes. But I think it creates a lot of confusion for the offense as far as who's coming on the blitz, who's rushing, who's not. And so I like it. I think it'll be, if they do go 3-4, it'll be a fresh look. The question that Ian mentioned a couple of minutes ago in his comment was he doesn't think that our personnel is very good for a 3-4, and that is going to be the question, right? Like how
we'll get into
our
that.
personnel has been built as a 4-3, and so guys like Kenny Willekes, Patrick Jones II, even Hunter, like what's his role going to be? We last week I was talking about how Michael Pierce potentially could be a salary cap casualty, but if you're going to a 3-4, he seems like the kind of stout run plugging dude you'd stick as your nose. So maybe you keep him. There's a lot of the Vikings defense there's a lot of roster questions they have to answer, and going to a different defensive scheme, I think it creates more of those questions, which will require more of those answers. And Donatel is going to be the one that's going to have to do it. But he's been around the block, like I say, a long time. So this is nothing new to him, and he's again worked under one of the best defensive coaches that I think in the NFL, and Vic Fangio.
Yep, and I think his blitz packages are going to be unique, and we shall see. Now, earlier this week, you wanted to talk about Danielle Hunter. How does Danielle Hunter fit?
I don't know. He has not been a guy who's stood up.
He has a few times, and actually Zimmer liked it.
A few times, but not the norm. But I kind of think that Danielle Hunter is, he's such a phenomenal athlete, such a phenomenal football player that whatever role you're going to put him in, I think he's going to thrive. We know 3-4 or 4-3, he's going to be getting after the quarterback, and he's not going to be covering slot receivers or tight ends down the field. But the first thing is, are the Vikings even keeping him? What are they going to do with him?
Seawise just posted if Captain Kirk and Danielle Hunter are traded, are they both worth first rounders?
Oh, you, you
My
you better
opinion
get
is
first
most definitely on both of them.
you better get them first rounders for them, or else you shouldn't be trading them because you'd
Hmm.
be giving them away.
Right.
So yeah, but yeah, Hunter, yeah, that and the Cousins question is the the big question the Vikings have to, or a big roster decision the Vikings have to make. That's number one, and Daniil Hunter is like 1B on that
Hmm.
roster decision that the Vikings have to make. And yeah, I don't know which way that's going to go. But like I said last week, I want to see Hunter stay in with the Vikings. He's too good of a player and creates too many problems for opposing offenses. And you're going to have a hard time drafting anybody that would match his production and what you've gotten out of him. And he's still younger than a lot of the top pass rushing defensive ends in the NFL now.
Right. He's
So
just starting to enter his prime, and he's already on a
yeah,
Hall of Fame trajectory. And defensive end is probably the most important position next to the quarterback on the field. If you've got one of those guys that are as good as he is, and I mean, to me, he's good enough that you model your defense around him, right?
yeah.
To take full advantage of him getting to the quarterback in 2.5 seconds or less and causing all sorts of havoc.
I think the other thing that outside of the Donatel, the other names that have emerged as Vikings as members of the Vikings coaching staff, like Chris Cooper, learned he's been under Mike Munchak in Denver the last 2 years, who's one of the best offensive line coaches in the business.
We'll get
So
to
I
that
like that.
when we talk O line, without a doubt.
Yeah, I like that. Curtis Modkins, as from what I've read, did a great job
Hmm.
developing running backs in Denver the past while he's been there. Whether it's Philip Lindsay and Javonte Williams, the rookie last year, even Gordon. So, I like those hires. They seem quite promising to me.
Hmm. I'm trying to remember some of the other ones. We have D line coach is Chris Rumpf. I thought I did an image of him. I don't think I loaded it. However, um, let's see. D line. I'm not seeing it. There we go. Here we go. Chris Rumpf played for Chicago, or coached for Chicago. Akeem Hicks is a free agent this year, which makes it one
Mm-hmm.
interesting to see if he comes over. And the whole idea about Chris Rump taking over is the whole Andre Patterson was let go, even though Andre
Yeah.
wanted to stay. And we did have a tweet by um, Daniil Hunter to the fact that he wanted him to stay. And where did I put that? Because I know I loaded it. And I can't find it. Oh, well. Um, he was, a lot of players wanted Andre Patterson to stay. Andre Patterson wanted to stay, but obviously the new regime said no. See ya. He signed with the Giants. He's now the coach of the Giants, which would make, if the Vikings do let go of Daniil Hunter, the first place that Daniil looks at, I would think it would be the Giants. But who knows? Chris Rumpf hopefully brings the same sort of deal. Top-notch defensive lineman. If he could bring the quality of Akeem Hicks and the rest of the Chicago defensive line that gave us fits for years, I'm cool with that.
Well, I did. Akeem's getting a little bit long in the tooth and has had some
Mm-hmm.
injury issues the past couple of seasons. I think that he'll be pretty pricey in free agency. It seems pretty clear he won't be back from Chicago. He's even said that himself during the season. I'd I'd like to have him on the Vikings because we wouldn't have to face him anymore because the guy's killed us. But I'm having a hard time seeing that happening. Cut Pierce, sign Hicks. Yeah, I guess you could do that if the price is right.
Yeah,
The
but I
Vikings have
like
some work to
Pierce.
work.
I
Yeah,
like
we haven't. We haven't.
our two nose tackles personally,
I
but
think
that's
that's yeah. But I think that we really haven't got a chance to really see the best of Pierce because he
he's
opted
been
out
injured.
in 2020 and he was hurt a lot of the time last year with various nicks and bruises and stuff. So yeah, I'd like to
But
see the
when he was
guy when he
in, he
did
made a
play. He seemed
difference.
effective.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we've got, let's see, you talked about working under Munchak. Let me show our new offensive line. Well, we'll get there when we talk offensive line.
Yeah.
Our next topic was, are you wondering, is Kevin O'Connell the next Brad Childress?
Chili, the name that brings shivers down the spine of most Viking fans, and not in a good way. I'm yeah, I'm not. I'm not asking. I don't feel like Connell is going to be the next Brad Childress, but that I've seen the concern expressed by Vikings fans that because O'Connell has never called the plays as an offensive coordinator, and Chili didn't call the plays when he got brought in here to great fanfare back in 2006. That somehow we're going to see a repeat that performance with O'Connell, and I just think that we should really need to pump the brakes on that a lot because Sean McVay didn't call the plays in Washington either when he was there as the offensive coordinator. I don't believe gets
Nope,
to
it
LA
was
as a
Gruden.
coach. Yeah, Jay Gruden was calling it, and we see what he's done with the LA Rams since then, calling the plays. They've been one of the better offenses in the NFL the whole time he's been there. I don't think that there's any correlation really. Would I feel a little better if I'd known O'Connell had been calling the plays the past 2 years with the way the Rams offense has functioned, which has functioned very well? Sure, but he's still been the OC, heavy involvement in game planning,
And
that
developing the
whole
plays, according to McVay, he develops their scheme of what they're doing on the offense, and just McVay runs it and calls the plays. Now, and
yeah.
it just doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter if O'Connell calls the plays or not. Actually, I'd prefer him not to. I'd prefer him
Mm-hmm.
to do the head coaching thing and time management and the whole works,
Yep.
and have his
Yep.
OC do it. Um, but we don't, we hear that Wes will be the OC. We don't know yet. If I'm cool with that, I'd rather him stay at that CEO level, managing the game, more than what Mike did. Where when his defense was on, he was busy in his card, and when the offense was on, he was busy in his card and talking to his defense on how to stop things versus paying attention to what's going on the field.
Yeah.
And so I have
It,
no issue with it. And here we show a picture of, who's the quarterback at the time.
Kirk Cousins, yes. And I think one of the things that was killed Childress during his time. It wasn't so much, I think, the play calling stuff. For one, the Vikings didn't do a really good job for much of his tenure in getting talent to get an explosive offense. So even you can call the best plays in the world, but if you got people like Robert Ferguson and Bobby Wade as your wide receivers, well, you're going to get what you're going to get. And if Tavares Jackson is your quarterback. But what really killed Childress is that the players didn't respect him in the locker room, and he had
especially
poor management skills for a head
especially
coach
after
in the
Favre
NFL.
came, and it was
So that was what really killed him. And from what all I've read about O'Connell is that well liked, well regarded by the players that he's worked with, and they, Cousins was quoted in Pro Football Talk. He was interviewed and saying that he felt that he said O'Connell's a bright offensive mind. He did a lot for my development while I was there. I'm excited to play under him. Now, there's lots of Viking fans who hope that doesn't happen, but that's another topic that we'll be talking about for probably every show after this one. But I feel that
Well, let
O'Connell.
Score North handle that for now. They're taking all the
Yeah,
arrows.
I have no concerns with O'Connell, and like I said, I hope that he takes more of a CEO role. But if he is calling the plays, I am not concerned about that. I don't think that there's that he's going to be the next, Brad Childress part two, and you could probably go through all kinds of coaches and find lots of examples of guys who never called before who were successful, and you'll also find lots of examples of guys who never called plays before and became a head coach who weren't successful, like Childress. But I think O'Connell, time will tell how that's going to work out for him if he indeed does call plays. I expect that he probably will, because it seems like that's what coaches do these days. That if they're offensive minded, they call the offensive plays. If they're a defensive minded coach, they tend to.
I'm curious how many out of the 32 actually call plays. I think it's only about 5.
Yeah, that's going to be a good exercise.
It's a good question. Is how many actually do call their plays, and how many delegate it down.
I'm just looking at the NFC North itself. You got LaFleur calls the offensive plays, Nagy called the offensive plays for the Bears, and Zimmer called the defense for the Vikings. The only one that was that didn't, but then he did, was Dan Campbell. He took over the offensive play calling from Anthony Lynn at the end of the year. So at least in the NFC North, all of the coaches last year were calling the plays on one side of the ball or the other. But yeah, you're right. In another division, it could be totally different. Like, I don't think Matt Rule is calling any of the plays for Carolina, but
well,
if he does, he's doing a terrible job.
Actually, I think he took over about halfway through and still did a terrible job.
Yeah.
I don't know. First, we have Aaron asked about Deshae Townsend, and I did a piece of artwork, and I don't have it loaded. It's going to be the new DB coach. He's going to work with the back end on the defense. C-Wise asked Ryan Grigson. I think he's just a sounding board, C-Wise. I don't think he's going to have a whole lot of influence other than to bounce questions off of. He's in a senior advisory role. I don't think he has any power. I think he's just a, hey, what did you guys do back in the Stone Age type question answering machine. So.
Yeah, it's a soundboard. It's another head to bounce ideas off of, or take advice from. Kwesi said again, and when the introductory press conference, that he was big on getting as much information as he could to make the decisions that he needs to make,
which is a smart move.
Yeah, no, it is. I think if you look at Drew, who is I think still on this call, he did recently had a little post on our Gallahorn site about Grigson's last few years with the Colts did not go very well, and maybe that might be a cause for concern. But again, Grigson has no power over personnel decisions, and again, I think he's a sounding board for Kwesi. Kwesi values his input, but doesn't mean he's going to do what Grigson says. And if Kwesi thinks that he's got something to offer, I'm good with it.
Mm-hmm. And hey, it's good. What did you do in the olden days?
Yeah, wasn't
we used to trade all this for a running back. All right.
Yeah,
thanks.
Right. Yeah, we won't be doing that.
Yep. It's not going to happen now. But, and it's, everybody goes through that through their careers. I had it when we'd get, the Gulf War started. We started to invade Iraq, and we had a problem with going into a war story. we had to get fuel for the U-2 spy plane down to Crete, the island of Crete, so we could fly out of there. And everybody in the command was freaking out. Oh my God, it's going to take 3 weeks for the boat to get down there, and we need to fly missions tomorrow. What do we do? And it's just like, I turn around and go, well, it's simple. You load up a specific type of tanker we had that could carry a different fuel in the body tanks, and you fly it down there and you pump it into bladders, and then you'll have it. Or you pump airplane to airplane, which we could do. And they're like, oh, that's a good idea. Right? And it's just like, and I'm talking to colonels and generals, and it's just, let's do it. If you need anybody that has experience, I've done it, I'll go, send me TDY, I'll do it. And they're like, oh, cool. And that's what we did. And it's just, maybe Grigson's that sort of guy. You get that once in a blue moon where, how did you do this? And he comes up with an answer that actually works today. Football is cyclic, right?
Yeah.
We go from one end to the other. And, the whole idea that the 3-4 was invented was to stop the wishbone, or the 4-3 was invented was to stop the wishbone and the veer offenses. And we've moved from that now to a hybrid styles of defense to stop play action and other things. We will eventually move back, and having the old time heads, the graybeards there to say, hey, no, the way we solved that was by doing this. That comes into play, and it is valuable. And I think that's why that happens. Darren needs some H2O, looking a tad white today.
That's the lighting, Aaron, but you're all right. I do need some H2O, and I am drinking it right now.
Well, I could bring that up real quick. I think camera effects. Here we go. Let's select Darren. Boom. And add a little bit of color. That's a little bit too much. And a little bit of warm it up. How's that, Aaron? Looks a little better? I don't think O'Connell is going to be a Childress 2. I think Childress was I used to say an idiot, but close to it. All right, I'm sure he's a nice guy, and I'm sure he and I would get along great, but it's some of the decisions he made while coaching the team drove me crazy. So I don't think that's going to happen. Let's move on to my favorite subject, the big round bellies, offensive line.
Offensive line.
Your new offensive line coach is this dude right there.
Not
Chris
me.
Cooper. Kuper. Cooper.
Yes, he's a former pro NFL lineman himself, and been coaching since 2014.
NFL lineman.
Yeah, not bad. So he's been there and done that.
Where did he go to college?
I forget. Wasn't it North Dakota or something?
It's North Dakota. He was the only other player. He was the first player beyond past Jimmy Kleinsasser that was selected for the NFL. What position did he play in college?
Was he? Geez, all these trick questions. I think was he a center?
No, he was a tackle. What position did he play for the Broncos?
Guard, I believe.
Guard. Yep, he was moved into guard, where he became all-pro. He's good. The only reason he had, I think, an 8-year career, and the only reason it didn't last longer was a devastating knee injury, I believe it was.
Yeah, and this is I mentioned it briefly in our first topic that he's worked under Mike Munchak, and I think a lot of the work Mike Munchak does with offensive lines his whole career. So if this guy's been the understudy under Munchak, plus he was a hell of a lineman himself, I'm liking what he can do to a Vikings offensive line that, let's face it, has not been very good for a very long time.
It hasn't lived up
And
to potential, to say the least. And Mike Munchak is considered the best offensive lineman in the NFL, and it is good to have his right hand man. And that's what Cooper is.
Indeed, and he's got some work to do in our positional, our evaluation of the Vikings' different positional units that were going with the offensive line, and like you said, this line has not performed up to hasn't performed up to its draft status in a lot of cases. We got two number ones, two number twos on the line, and then last year we had a seventh rounder thrown in amongst that. But that's some very highly drafted players on this line. You would think that the draft investments that the Vikings have made on that the line would have performed much better than it has, but it has not. And I think with the Vikings offensive line, though, really, if you're looking at the tackle position, is going to be that's locked down right now.
Right.
Barring injury, O'Neill is solid as they come. Darrisaw, I think, showed a lot of promise last year, and when he was healthy, I thought he played pretty well, particularly on the pass protection side of things. So the Vikings are fine there, barring injury. No worries. I think they got two good building blocks there. Of course, it's in the middle where the problems are. But Ezra Cleveland, he'll be going into his third year at starting left guard. I don't think that it's too early to give up on him yet. And there has been games where he has played very well. Then it seems like he has other games where he does not. I'd like to see more consistency out of him. And
but
then
you got to remember,
the issue.
Offensive linemen don't get it. It usually takes 3 or 4 years before they start to get it and become good. And Ezra Cleveland was good last year, and there was weeks during the season where he led PFF's scoring. He did so well. And there's things about Ezra's game I absolutely love, but I'm biased. I was an advocate for Ezra from the get-go. Morris to play
From
tackle,
the get-go.
but I could deal with him as a guard. So I'm happy with that. Now we have problems, though. You're right, in the middle. Both at right guard and at center.
Right guard and center. Last year you got Bradbury as your center for most of the year, although he lost his job briefly and then reclaimed it due to Mason Cole getting hurt. And then, so that's one issue, center. And then the other issue is right guard with Oli Udoh. You got Wyatt Davis there right now, and I think really the Vikings' decisions are that, again, the tackles are locked up. Cleveland's going to be back at left guard, no questions asked there. But really, the Vikings' decisions are: do we stick with Bradbury at center, and what about right guard? Udoh is a massive guy, big, thick, strong. You'd think he'd be kind of perfect for a guard, but inexperienced there, and my opinion was last year, it seemed like he lost, always got out. Well, like quickness beat him all the time, and that caused him to take all those holding penalties that we saw him.
Right, because he
or a lot of them.
And he'd turn around and he'd grab
somebody.
Yeah.
And now I don't know whether that's partly talent. I mean, he's a seventh rounder. Not highly drafted, or is it talent plus inexperience playing the guard position, and so he's still got a lot to learn. But really, I think that I'd really like to see a Wyatt Davis, Udoh fair, like a fair position battle there at right guard. Let them duke it out and see who wins, and I hope it's Davis, who's I think an All-American at Ohio State. Guy must be pretty good.
Well, hopefully he comes into camp in shape this year. That was his big knock last year, that he was out of shape. And to me, that blows my mind. Your whole dream in life is to become a professional football player, and you're doing all this training, and he did all the training up to the combine, and then you take a break, and it's like, makes you wonder. But I do hope he's learned and he comes in and he's ready to win the spot. Otherwise, we've
Well, at
got to
least
focus on finding a guard. Now, like I said, most linemen in the NFL don't come into their own until after their third year because it's a longer gestation time to become a pro offensive lineman. It's one of the spots that is. And if they do go free agent wise, I think right guard may be one of the spots that is targeted. But that's just me. I don't know how Quasey views that. I think it would be smart if they did, but of course we need money, and that drives us back to the old trope that we're not talking about this week.
no, that's right. The with guard, one thing to keep in mind is there was a comment about free agency,
Mm-hmm.
and there are some. If they get to free agency or not is one question. Sometimes a lot of these guys get extended before they even hit the market. But
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Sheriff is the top guard on the market, and O'Connell would have pretty good knowledge of him because Sheriff was there in 2017 when O'Connell was in Washington. But Sheriff's going to be pretty costly. The
But
other
he's
guy,
getting
maybe
up
to
there
keep
in
an
years
eye.
too.
Well, yeah, he's 30, and he's had
Well,
some
still
injury
that's still
issues for
good.
sure. But
Linemen can last to the mid
Austin
30s.
Corbett, yeah, Austin Corbett is the starting right guard for the Rams right now
Mm-hmm.
under O'Connell's offense, and he's slated to be an unrestricted free agent going into this offseason. I don't know how the Rams value him. Yeah, he's their starting right guard, and the Rams have always, since McVay has been there, have had pretty strong offensive lines. They don't know if Andrew Whitworth is going to be back next year. The guy is like 58 years old and keeps on playing at a high level. But if Whitford is lost, would they want to risk not re-signing Corbett as well? But Corbett is a guy to keep an eye on because of the Rams ties, and O'Connell knows him very well. Again, the Vikings have some salary cap issues they got to work on. Do they the starting five, really right guard is an issue. At center, I feel that the Vikings will bring Bradbury back and roll with him again. They
Well, he's
could
still under
re-sign Mason.
contract,
He
so
is, but he lost his job last year, right?
true.
I don't think that the Vikings want to give up on him, but it's a whole new coaching staff, whole new administration. We don't know how they feel about any of these players. Like Mason Cole, do the Vikings re-sign him? He's a free agent, and if he's the guy that beat out Bradbury, maybe he's kind of your solution or potential solution to the center position. I don't think that the Vikings, the best college center is Tyler Linderbaum from Iowa, by far considered the consensus best center in the draft. But are the Vikings going to pick a center at number 12? Assuming they no. They've got too many other needs, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Centers usually don't get picked that high. And,
They usually don't have
again,
that value. Now, from what I understand from talking to the draft experts like Tyler Fornes, Linderbaum is the real deal. He is that generational type. He's got attitude and he's an absolute mauler. But generally, you do not spend that sort of capital on a center in the first round when you can get good centers in round 3 and 4, much less you can find them in 2. So I don't know. I like Linderbaum too. I think the dude's going to absolutely rock it when he gets to the NFL. It's just, unless we have a sudden flourish of number 1 draft choices that we could use however we wish.
mm-hmm. And the Vikings they've got 8 draft picks going into this draft, which is a little bit low for them compared to previous years. They don't have as much draft capital in hand as they normally would. Like I said, a lot of needs on the defensive side of the ball, maybe even at quarterback. So I don't really see them going at offensive line early at all. Maybe a little bit later. They always a lot of teams tend to pick tackles and guards in the 6th and 7th round, and we have 3 6-rounders, so you could see an offensive lineman getting picked there. But really, I think your tackles are set, your left guard is set for the Vikings, I think that the Vikings are going to roll with Bradbury at center for better or for worse, and then a right guard. That's where the only real change in the starting five could be, where potentially you get Wyatt Davis beating out Udo. And then Udo, the other issue for the Vikings, and it's an issue at a lot of positions, is depth on the offensive line. Rashad Hill probably won't be back. So Blake Brandel would be, maybe Udo would be your swing tackle, maybe in that case.
Could be.
And Blake Brandel was like part of the heavy sets a lot more last year. So yeah, I think maybe they see him as more of a guard guy now than the tackle he was at Oregon State. But other than Brandel and Udo as your backups, Kyle Hinton, he's on the roster, but you know, I don't know if he has a future. Mason Cole's a free agent. Rashad Hill's a free agent. There's a lot of they've got to get some depth there, and I suspect that will come a little bit with maybe some low-level free agent signings in the offseason, plus drafting guys later on day 3 of the draft. But I think the Vikings starting 5, 4 of them are going to be pretty similar, or are going to be the same that you saw last year. It's really a right guard where hopefully Wyatt Davis takes over for Udo.
Right, and he's ready to take over for Udo. That's the big
Yes.
thing I want.
That's
I want
the big-
him
the big
to,
thing.
live up to that All-American status at Ohio State and become that, the absolute mauler and dominant right guard. I would love to see that. Now, for offensive scheme philosophy, from what I'm hearing, we plan on staying a lot in the zone blocking scheme, but they're going to be mixing in a lot of power. Power, for those that don't know, is your heads up. It's where the linemen get in their stance and they identify this guy, whatever it is, and the play and the reads determine which one it is the guy I'm going to hit. And they go out and they hit him, right? And they try to win that battle. They go out there with the purpose, I'm going to defeat this individual across from me. I'm going to knock him on his butt. I'm going to knock him in at least 3 yards back, especially if it's a run play. So the offensive line should be under the philosophy we own. If we're running the ball, we own. We must get at least 3 yards, and that's on us. It's nothing what the running back does, right? It's on us to open up that much space. I look forward to that aggressive tilt from what we've had, because before we've been zone running, which is fine. Zone running works.
Yep.
But I want that added little bit of juice of, I want to be aggressive. That these linemen are out there, they're going to kick their butts no matter what, and they're going to win. And that's what I'm hoping gets brought to the team this season.
Yes, for sure, Dave. I think that I don't know if it's a common feeling, but the Vikings offensive line, to me, in the past few years has been feels to me that's been a bit soft. Like they're not kind of the kick-ass, kind of angry, nasty to play against offensive line that I think that you and I appreciate when offensive linemen, like old Anthony Herrera. He used to be one of my favorites on the Vikings offensive line because he was just, you didn't want to play against him because
he was like
just
a grizzly bear.
When he was played. Miserable.
He was just boom, boom. I'm gonna kill you. I want to make your mother cry, and I'm gonna hit you so hard. Yes, that's the attitude you want. Ian said he's not sure our O-line is ready for power. I think the 3 we discussed that are good, Darrisaw O'Neal and Ezra Cleveland, I think they could transition to power without any issue. It's the other 2 that we're worried about, and who knows? But it takes attitude. And I think the new Cooper, having succeeded at that, will bring that. I miss Phil Rauscher going, and he got signed on somewhere like the Jaguars or some place. But I miss that attitude. The linemen should be, they're a close-knit clique. They eat together. They do everything together. but it should be, and they're gentle giants when you talk to them. But when they're on the football field, that demeanor changes. They may be quiet, but they don't. They're not quiet when they hit. They hit with aggression and force, and they absolutely need to dominate and have that mentality. And then I'm hoping that this year we start to see that and that grows, because once that starts to grow, it becomes infectious. The running backs want to do it. The wide receivers want to do it when they're pass blocking. The defense on the other side of the ball, the Vikings defense goes, hey, we can't let those guys, outdo us. And it just snowballs. And it snowballs into a hard-hitting, black and blue like the division used to be type of mentality. And that mentality will win you football games.
It will. And not enough of that mentality has been seen by the Vikings the past couple of seasons. Which we're hoping the new coaching staff can reinvigorate the players that are already and going to remain on the roster, and also keep the enthusiasm with the new guys who do arrive, and get them to a higher level of play, particularly the offensive line, which I said you've got some pretty high drafted individuals on that line that are going to be starting for you. It's it takes time, as you say, typically a lot longer for the offensive linemen to grow into their potential than maybe some other positions, but it's time for this offensive line, the Vikings offensive line, with the guys drafted in the positions that they were, to play at the level that you'd expect a number 1 and number 2 draft picks to play at.
Yep, without a doubt. Any more on the offensive line you want to hit before we go to the secret fourth?
No, that is it for the O-line.
All right.
You'll be disappointed, Dave, I'm sure.
The fourth topic. Oh, and I did not put up. Hold on. I got one more thing. We didn't talk about Kevin O'Connell. Kevin O'Connell, worried about NFL experience? This is your new head coach.
It is.
Backup.
Didn't have a very
Didn't last long, but oh well.
No,
now,
it did not.
The fourth topic is the absolute travesty that happened this week. Can you tell me why this man, this glorious man right there, was not inducted into the Hall of Fame?
I'll tell you why, because at least he will get in. There's no doubt in my mind that he will. And I thought that he had a pretty good shot to get in the first time. We had talked about it a few shows ago, because Jared Allen was the whole time he was in the NFL, pretty much, other than maybe his rookie year, he was considered one of the best edge rushers in the league. And he was also a very colorful guy. Had the roping, the lasso, sack dance,
and he had a good story of overcoming alcoholism and the whole works. Yep.
But I just felt that he had a good shot making make it in the first time, because of the fact that he was so well known, even though he played for the Vikings and the Chiefs, and then I think the Seahawks after that for a cup of coffee.
For the Bears.
Was it the Bears?
Oh,
jeez. I obviously wiped that from my memory. I didn't want to see it. Didn't want to even think about it. But he was such a quotable guy, well known for, and very colorful, very personable, just very popular with the media. So I thought that would get him a lot of brownie points. On top of the fact that he should be in anyway. But the reason he didn't get in is because he doesn't have a Super Bowl to his name. I think, that's what it comes down to.
That and corruption with the writers that vote for these people in. Because the whole finalists this year, I thought there was better people that were not on the finalist list than the ones that were actually... There were better people on the finalist list than the ones that were actually selected. And you are correct. It's lack of Super Bowl. I think if he had that, he would have been there. Hopefully next year he will get there. He was iconic, and Dan talked about the half sack. That's because the sack record, his was at least legitimate, and not Brett Favre laying down. But
Yeah, I did. I don't really. Like I said, I'm not going to sweat it. I know I'm quite confident Allen will get in the Hall of Fame, but and maybe it'll be next year or the year after. I think one of the things with the voters, like you said, the voters kind of look at the finalists, and if there's somebody who's been on the list a long, long time, who's a pretty solid player, maybe they feel that, well, we'll let him in this year.
and
Jared Allen will get in, and a year,
right,
2 or 3 years from now, we don't have to worry about that. He doesn't have to get in first time. But when it comes to the playing resume, there's no doubt that Jared Allen's a first ballot Hall of Famer. But like Drew said, it's tough. Very few guys get in the first time, no matter how good they are. You have to be like a generational GOAT type thing, like a Lawrence Taylor
or
a Tom Brady to get there. Or
rings.
Get Super Bowls. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we're not even going to get started on the Jim Marshall stuff. Cliff Branch got in, and no offense to Cliff Branch, but was he? And he had some crazy years. Like that year, he had like 41 catches and over 1,000 yards. Like had a 23-yard per catch average, which is crazy, especially back in those days. But was Cliff Branch as good for as long at his position as Jim Marshall was? I don't know. And still, Jim Marshall's not in there, and he's never going to get in there. Maybe he'll get in there when he's deceased.
Posthumously.
They seem to like to do that, but I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking.
It's just that this bit infuriated me this week. But it is what it is. So, hey. I want to thank everybody that has joined us today for this wonderful show. And love your comments, Dan, Aaron, Drew, Mr. Emmer, Ian, everybody, anybody I missed, Kevin, thank you. Thank you so much. And if you haven't already, please like, subscribe. The YouTube loves the algorithm, and ring the bell. They love when you chat. We appreciate it so much. And we'll be back in a week to talk even more football. And we should have an official head coach by then.
That's right.
But before we go, who do you want to win tomorrow?
I want the Bengals to win. The Rams already have a Super Bowl. And as much as I wish that McVay was the coach of the Vikings, the thought of his smirky, smartass, fist pumping down the sidelines, strutting down the sidelines, and doing that with a Super Bowl victory. I don't know. I like the Bengals story. They haven't they haven't won a Super Bowl yet. I don't know. I'd feel not bad about seeing them get in the club. And
Joe Burrow, I like his underdog approach. Is sort of the Joe Montana approach, because they said the same things about Joe Montana, who was the greatest quarterback ever until Brady. I like that story too, but I do want to say our next head coach is a Super Bowl winning coach. We shall see. Maybe it might work to the advantage that he loses, and then he has that burn still in him. So
if the Bengals do win, though, it will be Joe Burrow aside and Jamar Chase aside and Mixon aside. I think that it'll be the defense that wins it for them, not the offense. So like the defense is really the unsung hero of the Bengals in this whole season and these playoffs, because last week they kept them in the game against the Chiefs. If the Chiefs score like another touchdown in the second half, the Bengals don't go to the Super Bowl. So,
right.
Really, I think the Bengals D is the thing to really watch. I think the Bengals will be able to move the ball. They've got too much talent not to, But can they stop the Rams and and allow their offense to possess the ball enough? That's going to be, I think, a big key. But looking forward
for
to
an exciting game. Now, Super Bowls tend to be very ultra conservative, where they're not exciting and everybody's playing conservative. I hope to see exciting, but we shall see. Rams are favored. I don't know.
Yeah, you got two QBs who have never been there before, but I think that Burrow's kind of like he doesn't know what he doesn't know, whereas Stafford I think is kind of would be more of the concern for me. I'm a Rams fan. Like, how is he going to react in the biggest game of his life? And
when he
we've
can
seen
come out and throw 5 interceptions in a row.
Yeah,
3 of them for pick sixes. That's Stafford.
Yeah.
Or he can come out and just throw it all over the yard and be great. It's just
slice and dice. Yeah.
We don't know who's going to show up. It's going to be fun to watch. And it's going to be fun to drink and have a good time during the whole time. But be safe, drink responsibly, eat your favorite
Don't drink and
snacks.
drive.
Yeah. Eat your favorite snacks, foods. If you're having a party, enjoy your friends, the whole works. We only get Super Bowl Sunday once a year, so enjoy it. Aaron says it's 80 degrees in San Diego. Aaron, I've been to San Diego a handful of times. It's a beautiful city. And yes, it's always nice in San Diego.
Aaron, fuck off.
The only bad thing about San Diego is the traffic, just like LA.
I've been to San Diego. I loved it.
Well, I had to go from my hotel to work, which was like 7 miles away, and it took like 45 minutes, type deal. So, but downtown and down there where they have the convention center and stuff, and they have all the restaurants, that's fabulous. It's a wonderful place to visit, and then go to the beach and the cliffs and all that. Just fantastic food, fantastic beverage, wonderful people, gorgeous weather. It's a nice place.
Water's surprisingly cold there, though. I was surprised.
Pacific.
Yeah, I know.
With that, what do we say?
We say Skol Vikings, baby.
Skol, everyone! Thank you for watching or listening. As always, if you like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. And if you're listening to the podcast, please rate us on your favorite aggregator. Skol, everybody.